Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm very excited because we're gonna get the Acty back on the road. Last time you guys saw Chappie, we were doing the timing belt, but I didn't quite finish up because I had accidentally thrown away the valve cover gasket. On top of that, the accessory belts, they were super worn. Actually, let me show you a good close-up of them. So right here are the accessory belts that were on there. They needed to be replaced. They're super bad. I did think about getting OEM belts from Japan, but honestly, after shipping, it was going to be about $100, and to pay $100 for two accessory belts was ridiculous to me. So I went down to my local auto parts store and I had them match them with ones that they had. So for the alternator belt, this is what we came up with, and then for the AC belt, this is what we came up with. I am a little bit concerned about this one because it's a little bit longer and it's not exactly the same specs, but I think it's going to be close enough. If not, I'll return it, figure something out. Now that we got that all out of the way, let's get started on working. We're actually going to start at the valve cover gasket. Taking off the valve cover should be pretty straightforward. I actually already have everything just loosely on there because of last time, but want to take off the throttle cable. There's these two bolts right there. Break them loose, and then the one that's closest to the backside of the van or truck, if you have a truck, you want to bring that one all the way to the front, just like that. Bring this up, undo the cable, and then you could push it back. If you're curious to know, like, hey, how do I know where to put it back? You can just count the threads. So here I see 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I was putting a new throttle cable, I would make sure this bolt right here had about 4 threads showing, and that would get me roughly to the same place. Throw that off to the side. Next, we'll take this off. This recirculates some of the pressure coming out of the engine. Also, as I'm doing this, I got to give a shout out to my brother Jesus, because when I did the timing belt, I accidentally threw away the new valve cover gasket. Fortunately, he was throwing some trash out. He saw the box of parts or old parts sitting in the trash, and he's like, hey, that valve cover looks new. I don't think Daniel meant to throw that away. So he pulled it out of the trash for me, which was great because the trash had come, which is why I thought I couldn't get it back. Put these off to the side there. We got some 10mm bolts, 2 at the top and then 2 at the back here, which you really can't see. Just as a little heads up, on the bolt that's closest to the wheel well on the back side, there's actually a ground attached to it. And you just want to remember to put that back when you're putting everything back together, because if you don't have your grounds, that can cause an engine fire. Not a good time. Okay. I'm looking at the new valve cover. This looks like it's gonna fit, no issues there. These go around the holes for the spark plug. They look like they're gonna fit too. Probably my main concern actually has to do with these little guys. So these are the ones on the back side, no issue there. But I didn't realize these themselves had little gaskets on them. So I don't know how I'm gonna get these off. Yeah, this is gonna be a bit of a battle. Oh yeah, it's coming. All right, so that's not too bad. And then, so that's the old. It looks like the new one's just gonna slip on super easy. So let's see. Oh yeah, that's coming on really easy. Maybe I might have spoke too soon. Boom. Yeah, the new one slipped on with a little bit of muscle, but nothing crazy. On to the next. Well, we got the valve cover on. That thing fit really well. I've had issues in the past where the gasket doesn't fit exactly right, so it's a little loose and it's hard to put on, but this one, there is not a single issue. The next thing we're gonna do is put the accessory belts on. I feel confident in saying that the one for the alternator will fit. I looked on the Facebook Acty groups along with just any other information I could find, and it seems like the one I got will be fine. It's the one for the AC belt that I'm not sure about. I hope this should be a pretty straightforward thing. Typically, you have to get off these covers right here, which I actually have right there, but because I was in here doing the timing belt and I knew the belt needed to be replaced, I ended up just kind of leaving it half assembled. This made it easier for me, so I don't have to do double the work and then like put it together just to pull it back apart. That didn't make sense. Now, some of these bolts are difficult to access, so like this one's not too bad, but there's the tensioner bolt way up there, and then right over here there's also a tensioner bolt on this side of the bracket. I have a couple options to get to them. First one is I could take off the passenger side engine mount. Option number 2, maybe trying to see if I could tighten it from up above, because it seems like the tensioner bolt right there I may be able to get, and then the other bolt right there I will definitely be able to get from the top. But first I'm going to test fit them to see if these things even fit. The AC belt actually goes on first. I can get that in there. It fits. I actually have some major concerns because that's so much bigger. This right here is where the adjuster is, and it's pretty much already at the end of its adjustment. Considering that this is actually bigger than the previous belt, I just don't think it's honestly gonna fit. I think the smarter thing is to go back and try to get a smaller belt, because the physical like dimensions, so the top width and everything, fit perfectly fine, but this one's just slightly too big for the given area that I have here in terms of like the adjustment. The fortunate thing is I know exactly what size I have to get, so considering this is a 15290, I quickly googled it, and if I went with the 15280, that's about an inch smaller, and I think that should easily fit here with no issues, because look at all the adjustment I have here. I'm gonna go down one size, but on the right track for the AC. On the alternator, there's a bolt up here which I should be able to get from up top, but then there's also this little bolt, so I'll need to break this loose. It's on there pretty tight, so I'm using the breaker bar. There you go. All right, we are good to go. That is on. Obviously we have to tighten it, so this is good to go. One of the things I did forget to do is I realized I have to take off the passenger side engine mount, because right up there is a little bolt that has to be tightened down. Yeah, that's fun. Just as a little, I guess, heads up for anyone who has never removed the passenger side engine mount, you can use a jack and jack it up under the oil pan. That's what the owner manual says. I like to be careful, so I use a piece of wood to disperse the load. This is actually the bolt that I forgot to tighten up. Everything else is nice and tight besides this one. So I tighten this up, and then from there I can adjust the tension, and then I tighten that up. Or maybe I tighten this up and this adjusts the tension. I'm actually still really new to this, or to this platform, so I'll tighten this. I'm gonna try tightening this up, because if I turn this clockwise, theoretically that should bring this up and put tension on it, but I'm not entirely sure, so it's kind of one of those things where trial and error. But if that doesn't work, I'll just adjust the tension manually and then hold it right here. So we'll give it a shot. Turns out I was wrong. Again, this kind of just shows how new I am to this platform. Even though this is tightened down really good, this still moves around right here. So yeah, I guess the more you learn. Now, putting the alternator band didn't go on as easy as I thought it was going to be. The big thing is there's not like any built-in tensioner, or if there is, maybe I'm missing a piece that goes right here. So what I ended up doing on here was I held or pulled on the alternator to get tension onto the band, and then I had my dad come through and tighten these bolts down. I would have had that on camera, but he likes his privacy, so I respect that. Anyways though, the alternator is good to go. So I'm going to put the timing covers that I have over there back on here. Again, the AC is going to have to wait for another day, but that's not too big of a deal because my daily commute's pretty tiny. Well everyone, I'm pretty nervous, but this is kind of the last thing, and that's filling her up with coolant and then bleeding the system. Typically there's a cover here, but on my van it's actually broken, so I don't have to worry about that. But I take this off, undo this little bolt, and then right here is my radiator cap. Oh shoot. I didn't honestly expect the system to be that filled with coolant still. I guess that is what that is, so I will turn her on here in a minute. Now that we got the coolant topped off, we're kind of at the moment of truth for me, because I have test started it and it ran good for those 30 seconds. But now we're gonna try to bleed the coolant out. So she's in neutral. The fuel pump. Oh yeah, I want the heater core on. So yeah, all that stuff on, and then oh yeah, she runs really good. Keeping that topped off or open. I did my best to get most of the oil off, but some of it I couldn't get off, so it's gonna steam off. That should be okay. I'm excited because as I'm looking under here, there's no water water leaking, which is one of my big fears, the coolant would start leaking. She's smoking a little bit. I did drop a little bit of oil on the exhaust. I think I might be a tooth off. It seems to be running a little rough. There is the other side that she's been sitting. The gas could be bad. Oh, you know what? At high RPM, she runs really smooth. I know prior to the timing belt, I did have an issue. Actually, one of you guys pointed it out, where at idle, it really seemed really off. So I wonder if that's the issue. But at high RPM, it's not like it's bogging down or anything like that. Well, it's been a few weeks since that last clip. Unfortunately, I just needed to hurry up and bleed the coolant on the van. I had a dinner date with my girlfriend, and unfortunately, I mismanaged my time, so I was running a little behind. When it came to bleeding the coolant on the van, everything went really smooth, besides the fact that the bleeder valves are kind of a pain to get to. I initially thought there's supposed to be a bleeder valve on the underside here. So right here is where the spare tire should be. Right above the spare tire, there's actually supposed to be 2 bleeder valves, or so I thought. There wasn't any on my van. After looking at the owner's manual, I found that it's actually right there. There could be 2 depending on how your van is optioned out. And then the other 2 bleeder valves are right here. So one was right there and one was right there. So the issue that I ran into was the fact that only one of my bleeder valves worked, which that did make it a bit of a pain to bleed the cooling system, but I did manage. The one tip that I would give you guys that helped me a lot is that I wouldn't consistently have the bleeder valve open. I would crack it open, close it again, because in like the MR2s, they have bleeder valves. You just crack them open and you leave them open for the whole duration. Versus this van, it was best to just crack it open and close it. And because this is actually the only bleeder valve that worked, I would crack this one, close it, but normally you would crack this one, let's just say, and then you would close it, then you'd come over here, crack this one open and close it. Anyways, I just wanted to give you guys that little update so we could end on a positive note. And the simple fact that the van has been driving around for a couple weeks with no issues, I'm super excited. I still have to address the whole drive shaft situation so my 4-wheel drive works, but for the moment I'm rolling around in 2-wheel drive and I'm not having any issues. I did drive the van in a field, and I gotta be honest with you, it kind of shined a light on the fact that there's a lot of worn components in the steering and suspension, so that's something I'm gonna have to address as well. As I was looking in there, I noticed that the front subframe bushings were pretty worn, so I don't even know if I can get those anymore. Unsurprisingly though, that just means there's more stuff to do on the Acty. Well, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.